Can you study in China without speaking Chinese? Or is that just something that sounds good on social media? Do real bachelor's degrees and master's programs in English actually exist, or are they just a few very limited options? Which universities truly offer them? In which fields is it worth it? And what are the real limitations that almost nobody explains before you apply? Today we're going to talk honestly about studying in China in English. What's real? What's a myth? What opportunities truly exist? And what mistakes many students make when they jump in without clear information. If you're considering China as a study destination, this video can save you time, money, and a lot of frustration. Hello, foreign friends. I'm Tyler, and I'm part of the LivinChina team. If you're interested in studying abroad, understanding how China really works, and making informed decisions, not based on unrealistic promises, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and like this video. Here, we share real, up-to-date information based on real student cases. In this video, we'll take an in-depth look at whether it's truly possible to study in China in English. We'll talk about which bachelor's degrees are actually offered in English, what options exist at the master's level, which areas China is strong in and which ones it isn't. I'll also explain the real limitations of studying in English in China, the level of English that's usually required, how universities with international programs operate, and why many expectations created on social media don't always match reality. We'll also break down several common myths about studying in China in English and explain for which type of profile this is a good option, and for whom, honestly, it isn't. The goal isn't to sell you a dream, but to make sure that by the end of this video you have total clarity and can decide, based on real information, whether China is the right path for you or not. What can you study in English in China? When we talk about studying in China in English, the first thing to clarify is this. Yes, there are programs in English, but not in all fields and not at all universities. China offers English-taught programs mainly in internationally oriented fields with high global demand. At the bachelor's level, the most common areas are engineering, international business, economics, marketing, computer science, international relations, and in some cases, medicine. In engineering, for example, there are English-taught programs in specialties such as computer engineering, electronic engineering, mechanical engineering, and civil engineering, especially at large, well-ranked universities. These degrees usually last 4 years, just like in other countries, and combine theoretical classes with very well-equipped laboratories. In fields like business, management, or international trade, China has a fairly wide offer in English because these programs are specifically designed for international students. These are often the most accessible options for those who don't speak Chinese and want to study in an international environment from day one. Now, something very important. Not all degrees are available in English. Programs like law, psychology, education, or degrees that are highly focused on the local Chinese context are usually taught almost exclusively in Chinese. Another key point is that even if the program is taught in English, living in China without any Chinese can be challenging. Speaking Chinese is not mandatory to study these programs, but learning at least the basics makes a huge difference in your daily life. That's why, before choosing a degree in China taught in English, it's essential to carefully analyze the university, the specific program, the real language of instruction, and your academic profile. At LivinChina, this is exactly what we help with, identifying which English-taught programs are truly viable and which ones are not worth it, depending on each case. Master's degrees in English in China, the reality. At the master's level, the offer of English-taught programs in China is much broader than at the bachelor's level. This is because many Chinese universities have developed postgraduate programs specifically for international students. This is where China becomes truly attractive for those who want to study in English. The most common English-taught master's programs in China are in areas such as engineering, business, MBA, economics, finance, marketing, data science, artificial intelligence, international relations, and public health. In these fields, the language of instruction is often 100% English, especially at large universities with international experience. Master's programs in China usually last 2 to 3 years, depending on the university and the program. Compared to other countries, costs are more accessible, with tuition fees typically ranging from $3,000 to $6,000 per year, which is significantly lower than in Europe or the United States. One important point that many people overlook is that even if the master's program is taught in English, some universities may include mandatory basic Chinese language or Chinese culture courses. This doesn't mean you'll have to take academic exams in Chinese, but it does mean the university expects you to adapt to the local environment. It's also crucial to understand that not all English-taught master's programs are at the same level. Some are very well structured and oriented toward research or industry, while others exist more as basic international programs. That's why analyzing the curriculum, the professors, and the university itself is essential before applying. At LivinChina, we help students identify which English-taught master's programs are truly worth it, which ones fit their profile, and which ones are better avoided, so the decision is strategic, not improvised. Real limitations of studying in China in English. Now comes the part almost nobody explains clearly: the real limitations of studying in China in English. Yes, it's possible, but it's not the same experience as studying in English-speaking countries, and it's important to know this before deciding. The first limitation is that the offer in English is not unlimited. Even though there are degrees and many master's programs in English, they are concentrated in specific fields and specific universities. You can't assume that every university or every program will have a real English option, even if their website suggests it in a general way. The second limitation has to do with the actual level of English. Even if the program is taught in English, the English proficiency of some professors can vary. At top universities, this is usually not an issue, but at less international institutions, accent or fluency can make classes more demanding for international students. Another very important point is life outside the classroom. Even if you study in English, China operates in Chinese. Paperwork, supermarkets, hospitals, local transportation, and daily life are mainly handled in Mandarin. You don't need Chinese to pass your classes, but not learning any Chinese at all can make your experience much more difficult than necessary. It's also important to understand that not all degrees allow you to stay and work afterward. Some fields have more labor restrictions for foreigners, and in certain sectors, additional permits are required. Studying in China does not automatically guarantee a job afterward, and this must be evaluated realistically. Finally, there's a cultural and academic limitation. The Chinese university system can be more structured and disciplined than in other countries. This isn't negative, but it is different, and not all students adapt in the same way. For all these reasons, studying in China in English is a real option, but it's not for everyone or for every profile. Understanding these limitations before applying is key to making a good decision and avoiding frustration. Compiled myths about studying in China in English. One of the biggest problems when talking about studying in China in English is the number of myths circulating on social media that create unrealistic expectations. Let's clear up the most common ones. The first myth is thinking that everything can be studied in English in China. That's not true. Although there are English-taught programs, they are concentrated in specific fields like engineering, business, or technology. Not all degrees or universities offer real English options. The second myth is believing that if you study in English, you don't need to learn any Chinese. Academically, that can be true, but in daily life, Chinese is essential. Not learning at least the basics can make simple tasks unnecessarily complicated. Another very common myth is that studying in China automatically guarantees a job after graduation. The reality is that working in China as a foreigner has specific requirements and depends heavily on the field, the company, and the type of visa. Studying in China improves your international profile, but it is not an automatic job guarantee. There's also the myth that all Chinese universities are the same. The difference between universities with international experience and more local institutions is huge, especially when it comes to English-taught programs. choosing poorly can seriously affect the quality of your academic experience. And finally, there's the myth that China is only an option for geniuses or extremely advanced profiles. In reality, there are programs for different academic levels. The key is choosing correctly based on your profile, budget, and goals. Understanding these myths is essential to making an informed decision and not being misled by exaggerated promises. After everything we've covered, it's clear that yes, it is possible to study in China in English, but it's not a decision that should be taken lightly. There are real English-taught degrees and master's programs, but there are also limitations, major differences between universities, and many myths that can lead you to make mistakes if you don't have the right information. China can be an incredible opportunity for some profiles, but it's not for everyone. That's why getting informed before applying is essential. If after this video you still have questions about degrees, master's programs, costs, universities, or simply want to know whether China fits you, at LivinChina, we help you analyze your case in a personalized way. I invite you to message us on Instagram or check the links in the description to receive clear and honest guidance before making such an important decision. Thank you for watching this video. Support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing. And if you'd like us to cover a specific topic, leave it in the comments. See you in the next video.